You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. I'm a firm believer that we're all connected by our shared humanity, and that finding that intersection sometimes just means having a conversation. Today, we get to hear from my dear friend Marc Whitt. He is the current Director of Media and Strategic Relations at the University of Kentucky. I've known Marc since I started at Christian Appalachian Project. That's been almost 9 years ago. He recently mentioned that he had a relative that was connected to the Pack Horse Library in East Kentucky. So since I had recently read the book Woman of Troublesome Creek and the book Woman's Daughter, I knew I just couldn't miss the opportunity to have Marc on the show. Marc is something of a rock star himself. And so he hails from Paintsville. He is a Kentucky born and bred author of 2 award-winning best-selling books on public relations. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my friend Marc Whitt. Hi, Marc. Welcome to the show.
Hey, it is great to be here. Great to be here, dear friend.
Oh my gosh, we are going to have a time today, and can't nobody help it.
The party is beginning.
The party is beginning. Let it begin. So, Marc, tell me about this connection that your family has to the Pack Horse Librarians. It's such a fascinating story. So, give us all the details.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's a story that I did not know until much later in my own life. I knew my great aunt May Stafford, the daughter of Francis Marion Stafford of Paintsville, Kentucky fame. In fact, when you go into Paintsville, her family's house still stands. It was actually built by her grandfather, John Stafford, but it's known as F.M. Stafford House after her dad. But it was actually her grandfather, John Stafford, who built that house in around 1845. And it stands today as the oldest home in Paintsville. So it's quite a historic place. But growing up, all the way through my high school years, I knew May very well. In fact, she was always known and was to be addressed at all times as Aunt May. That was until I was summoned to the house. Just prior to coming to Eastern Kentucky University, where I was getting ready to begin my undergraduate studies. And when Miss May called you to the house, I don't care how busy you were, you dropped whatever you did and you got to the house. So I got there, and she always sat in this one chair that was in her living room. I don't think she ever moved much from that chair. And she had a straight back chair that was positioned right in front of her. Our knees were nearly meeting. And so she invited me to sit down. And she told me that because I was getting ready to go to college, and that she was very proud of me, and I was now a young adult because I had just turned 18, that I no longer needed to call her Aunt May, but that I had the choice of either calling her Miss May or just simply May. And so we came to reconciliation of what name to use. And so from that point on, Aunt May became simply May. And she lived for about, I think, another year or two before she passed away in her early 90s.
Wow.
But Tina, it was not until KET had done a documentary about this. They contacted me. A friend at KET contacted me and said, "Hey, Marc, isn't May Stafford a relative of yours?" And I said, "Well, yes. I mean, you don't get that kind of question every day." And I said, "Why?" And then they told me about this incredible concept that she came up with by using horses and filling their packs with books to get them to the children of Eastern Kentucky up in every holler you could possibly imagine. And I had no idea. In fact, just prior to our discussion here, I contacted one of my first cousins who was also, she was a niece of May. And I said, did you know this? Because May never told any of us this incredible story. And why? I don't know, because believe me, she told us just about everything else that had happened. And it was an incredible life that she had. I mean, she personally knew Thomas Edison.
Oh, my goodness.
Knew Clara Bernhardt. I mean, she knew all of these very, very famous people of the day, and traveled extensively in New York City. She would oftentimes do readings of poetry and drama. She would do that in New York City. She would do it in St. Louis, Missouri. She would do it, of course, around Kentucky and other parts of the South. And so she was just a very fascinating woman. I mean, just really a fascinating woman. But this was a story, Tina, for whatever reason, she never told. And so it has been later in my life that I have been slowly learning more and more about this incredible idea. She did, as you would probably imagine, had a wonderful library herself and was extremely well read. In fact, all of her family, I knew several, there were 18 children in her family.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I knew, including her, I knew 3 of them very, very well. So I'm blessed to have known them. Her sister was my great grandmother, Dora Stafford Spears, and my mother was named for her. So my mom's name was Dora too. But so yeah, just a fascinating lady. And I think it speaks so well of her heart that she saw this need. And true to May's spirit, she waited on no man.
Yeah.
And I mean no man, gender man. She was an independent lady, and who was a self-starter. And she didn't need anyone to tell her if it was okay or not to do it. I mean, she just blazed the trail. And this is a perfect example of that. So
that's
fascinating life.
So what does that legacy mean to you to have that as part of your family history?
Boy, it means so much because education has always been such an important part of growing up in Paintsville. I graduated from Paintsville High School in 1978. Which in my mind, that seems like yesterday until I look in the mirror, and then it was obviously more than last year. It reminds me of a time, one of the things that I do at UK, in addition to my staff role, is that I teach a couple of courses in the Department of Integrated Strategic Communication. And a few years ago, I had a student who meant well when he asked me. He was so excited because we were talking about old stories and all. And his question was, how was it when you were alive? And then everyone broke out laughing and his face turned red. And I said, here's the good news. I'm still there. But, back to what you were saying, though, my granddad, Whitt, even though he spent the bulk of his career in the oil industry. In fact, he worked most of the oil fields across eastern Kentucky, particularly in Magoffin, Johnson County, Pike, Floyd, and then later he went out to Ohio County where he helped to drill wells, and he was with Ashland Oil beginning in their very early years. So, but prior to that, he earned a degree from what became Morehead State University, and he became a teacher for a little bit. And so, even to going back that far, education was extremely important. And then my dad spent the bulk of his professional career in music education. He was a band director and started a number of band programs from scratch across Eastern Kentucky. I'm very, very proud of that. When I say from scratch, he literally was putting horns in the hands of students in Johnson County, Laurel County, and other places, other county school systems in Eastern Kentucky. So I used to kid him. I said, "Dad, this makes you kind of like the Daniel Boone of band programs in Eastern Kentucky." So, and we continue to play.
Yeah.
We're now in a community band here in Richmond of about 80 members. It's the Madison Community Band. I'll get that plug in. I know they'll appreciate that. It's a great No, that's right. Yeah, that PR thing just continues, but it's just super. So I've been playing trumpet now for 56 years.
Oh my goodness!
Out of my now 65, which that's kind of hard to believe too. But so music's just been such a part of my life. And then to your question about Appalachian and my roots, let me tell you, I am in so many ways the beneficiary of all of the goodness that Appalachia provides. I would not take anything for the experiences that I had growing up in Eastern Kentucky, and I'm so proud of that. I'm proud of my heritage, and it really taught me so many things: grit, determination, faith, being able to help neighbors who are in need of help. I remember my grandmother Whitt telling stories about during the Great Depression when she and my granddad lived up a hollow in Magoffin County, and because they for all practical purposes did pretty well for themselves. Obviously he was involved in the oil drilling business there, and so they did pretty well. But so many of their neighbors were just in poverty, and so every Sunday after church, they would invite everybody up to their house for Sunday dinner. Everybody up their hollow, and so that's just and that's who Eastern Kentuckians are. They literally would give the shirt off their back to help somebody else. So I'm very much a part of that. I got that from my maternal grandparents. I worked for my granddad Spears when I was in high school. Every summer, those 4 summers in high school, I worked at his service station in downtown Paintsville, and I saw firsthand what servant leadership truly was about. Being a person of your word, leading with character and integrity. Gosh, to be surrounded by that, you just, it shapes who you are, and I'm very proud of that.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
3,204,335 people in Kentucky live in a community that does not have enough mental health professionals. Counselors from CAP's Family Life Counseling Services are here to stand in these gaps for Appalachian communities. You are not alone, and help is available. To learn more about CAP's Family Life Counseling Services, visit our website at christianapp.org/mental health. That's christianapp.org/mental health. If you or someone you love needs immediate help, please dial 988.
So you talked about the Pack Horse Librarian education part of your family story, as well as the music part of your family story. So how did you end up in public relations? Like, what led you that path? And kind of, I guess you still do education. So you brought that piece back around. But talk a little bit about what made you decide to pursue education. Maybe that wasn't your first.
Well, I was actually, yeah, well, you're right. I was actually contemplating going into music education, and I had I had thought long and hard about it. I wanted to follow in Dad's footsteps and be a band director all the way while I was in high school. But I tell you, there was also this part of me that I loved being able to tell stories. I was surrounded by storytellers. I mean, if you came to either our house or my grandparents, particularly my grandparent Spears' house for dinner, you were not getting up from the table in 30 minutes. I mean, we would spend, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours just around the table hearing my granddad telling these incredible stories. And I was so captivated by that. And so that played a major influence for me, but probably going back to when I was in the 7th grade, my dad would ask me if I would help him recruit my friends to be a part of his band program. So man, oh man, I took that opportunity, and I would make posters. I would do all I could to encourage my friends, and so I would publicize to those who were in the junior high school or senior high school about the band program, and so I loved that. And so years later, when I got into college, my junior and senior years, and then even going into to my graduate school years, I had a 4-year internship in the Department of Music at Eastern Kentucky University. And so I was getting the best of both worlds. I was in nearly every instrumental and vocal ensemble that Eastern had. In fact, even to this day, I've got some friends who are convinced that I really was a music major because I lived in that building, in the Foster Music Building. But when I wasn't either playing my trumpet or singing in an ensemble, I was busy overseeing the PR for the department. And man, what an incredible experience that was! And so by the time I was nearing graduation, I kind of came to somewhat of a crossroads, thinking about which direction would I want. Do I want to go toward, I knew I wanted to do PR. Do I want to go toward the performing arts, or do I want to go in toward higher education? Because I love both of them. And, is one thing led after another. And so the good Lord opened a door for me to get into higher education after I finished my graduate work. And my first job was at what was then Cumberland College, and my wife was finishing up her elementary teaching degree there, and so I began my career there, and I loved it. And so for 40 years now, I've been in higher ed work, overseeing public relations. So, and I would not. I mean, it's just been such a great journey.
Yeah. Public relations deals a lot with brands and image and all of that sort of thing. Is there a way for the Appalachian region to experience a rebrand as well?
Well, yes, yes. I think that being from the region, I can say this: the region has so much to offer. And I was at a conference a while back in which a speaker described the region as one of Kentucky's best kept secrets. And I thought to myself, well, right there is a problem. Right there is a problem, because if something is a best kept secret, somebody is not doing their job. They got to get out and tell that story. But to that end, Tina Bryson, I will tell you that you and your team at CAP get that, and so I applaud you all, because you all are very effectively getting out and telling that so many incredible stories
Yeah.
that are taking place, and we need, and when I say we, it's not just CAP and it's not just Marc Whitt, but it's all of us who have a connection to the region. It really is incumbent on us to share the stories. Yeah, there are plenty of hardships and continue to be plenty of hardships, and those, we need to do all we can to continue to address those and make life even better for those who make the region home. But man, there are so many success stories, and we all need to do a much better job in telling those stories. And so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of one of those success stories, Marc Whitt, we would put you in that category. We talked about how you have written books, you teach. You definitely are known in the public relations world for investing in other professionals in that space. So you've connected us, like the local public relations community, to some awe-inspiring PR professionals from around the world. One of those that sticks out to me is when you brought to us speakers from Ukraine in the middle of a war to talk to us about the challenges that they're facing doing PR work. Can you speak to why those events were meaningful to you, and how did you get connected with PR professionals in Ukraine?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I love most about the public relations profession, not just the sharing of stories and telling stories and all, but making connections. Networking and relationship building is really the foundation for our profession. And I just absolutely love meeting new people. I love maintaining relations with folks who, like you, are such dear friends, and continuing that aspect. And our world, even though we think it's a large place, it really is not. I mean, we all seem to have similar connections, and one connection leads to the next, and so I've always enjoyed being able to reach out to as many people as possible and get to learn about them and what makes them special. Everybody's got a story, and so I simply love that. And you mentioned about the Ukraine connections. The most recent book that I wrote, When in Doubt, Make Applesauce, it caught the attention of some people. The book is sold in about 30 countries.
Oh my gosh.
Which is hard to believe. Paintsville boy putting a book out like that. And here again, I am so blessed and most grateful for that. But there were some people who the book is not sold in Ukraine, but some people who were from Ukraine were in a country where it was, and somehow a couple of them picked up a copy, and then it just started kind of taking a life of its own. So I've got, I think on LinkedIn, I think I'm connected to about 40 or 50 public relations professionals who live in Ukraine, and yeah, and boy, I tell you, what great people they are. And so I've really enjoyed getting to know them. Julia Petrick, who you were mentioning, Julia was one of the two principal people who helped to launch what became known as the Ukrainian PR Army. They became primarily a news agency to provide accurate news to some of the world's leading news organizations. So one thing led to another, and that's kind of how that took off. But that's been the case with other countries too, and that's one of the reasons when I did write this latest book, I wanted it to be more than just my voice, more than just my thoughts. I wanted to see what others in other parts of the world thought in terms of the direction I was taking. I wrote that book looking at 8 core habits that I believe that a masterful public relations professional maintains, very consistent throughout the course of their career. And so I initially reached out to about 40 professionals in close to 10 countries, I believe. And so I wound up with 35 from 7 countries. And so here again, I like to use this book as a way to reach out to others so that they're hearing voices, not just mine, but voices from other places too.
Yeah. So tell us, so that was your second book. What was your first book called? What made you want to write a book? And that both your books are bestsellers, award winning. So tell us what made you think I can write a book, and then it just took off and did it.
Well, I will admit I was the last person who ever thought that I was going to be able to write a book. Of course, I think all of us laugh, time or two, where we'll say, one day when I write that book, and so I was there, but I was certainly not looking to do a book. I've obviously written a whole lot, being in public relations, and I've had the opportunity to be a guest columnist for a couple of trade publications. And so that was about the extent of it. And so when I was before I began my work at the University of Kentucky, a dear friend of mine from college years was a publisher in Lexington, and he Don McNay was his name. Sadly, Don has since passed away, but Don asked me if I would be willing to help become a book publicist for some of the books that he was publishing, and I had never done it, but I said, hey, let's give it a whirl. Let's see how it goes. So I did that for just a bit. I really enjoyed it, but obviously, when I began my work at UK, I had to give that up because it was just too involved. But one day, Don called me, invited me to have coffee with him in downtown Richmond, and so I thought he was going to talk about another book that he was publishing, and he looked pretty serious, and he said, "Okay, so when are we going to publish your book?" And I remember I just kind of chuckled. Yeah, I just laughed like you did. And he did not. And he looked, and I mean, he was one of these guys that if he was serious, he was serious. He said, Mark, he said, I really think you, based on some of the conversations we've had, and I've seen some of your previous work, he said, I would really like to see a book happen. And so I said, well, I guess we can see how that goes. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, you write me 3 chapters, and if I like it, we'll do it. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell you. And he would have. He would have told me. So I wrote the first 3 chapters of what was to become my first book, PR Lessons Learned Along the Way. And Don liked it a lot. And so from that point on, unfortunately, and very sadly, Don died from a heart attack about midway through that project. And so a very dear friend who was his associate publisher, Adam Turner, launched a publishing group, Cherry Moon Media, also in Lexington. And so Adam came to me and he said, Mark, we've got to pick this up and make this happen. So I owe so much to Adam and his faith in this project. And so he actually has published both of my books, and has been a really dear friend, a great supporter, encourager along the way.
I'm sure your great Aunt May would be so proud of you. And so we circle back to where we started. Here you are, hometown boy, May Good. When you think
Well,
about
I appreciate that. I
absolutely.
appreciate
Look,
that.
I know you are very humble, but it is well deserved. You have mentored me, and we work alongside each other. And
In fact, you're in this last book. You're in this most current book as
I
an editorial
am
contributor.
very,
So
very proud of
he's
that.
among that group of about 35 or so who are in there on that one chapter.
So, what makes you proud when you think about the future of Appalachia from folks like your great aunt that's a part of the history, not just of Paintsville, but of Eastern Kentucky? And now you and the rest of your family are writing your own history. When you think of the future of Appalachia,
Yeah.
what gives you hope?
Gosh, I get to travel so much on behalf of UK. And when I have, in fact, I just got back from making visits from London up to Hazard, through Paintsville, Pikeville, then on up to Ashland. And I'll tell you, it is just, to me, I get so excited seeing how much has changed from the time that I was growing up. I mean, you've got beautiful highway systems that, oh my goodness, I mean, they're almost all like interstates. Of course, the Mountain Parkway continues to expand. That is going to, once that's completed, oh my goodness, that is just going to be incredible. US 23, once upon a time, 2-lane crooked road. Now it is 4 lanes. And I think if I'm correct, I think it now gives direct access from Charlotte, North Carolina, through Eastern Kentucky, all the way up to Columbus, Ohio. So that is great artery for the area. And of course, then you've got the parkway systems, Pikeville, London, Prestonsburg, Ashland, Middlesbrough. I mean, all these, so many of the communities, Corbin, I mean, they're all just Hazard. Oh my goodness. I was in Hazard a few days ago. I had coffee downtown. I mean, it's just, and Harlan's doing too. I mean, I can name so many others too that are really, really making some great progress, and just makes me proud. Makes me very, very proud.
Awesome. You called out so many places. I hope our listeners, if they've never been to some of these places in Kentucky, if all they do is come to Lexington or Louisville or go across the river to Cincinnati, that they will think of all of these wonderful places. That it's places. Amazing food, there's art, there's outdoor places to explore, just beautiful natural resources. So just come see it, come visit,
And
come
if
be a
I
part
left
of it.
a town out, please do not send me hate mail.
Don't send it to me either.
So they're all great. They're all
They're
great.
all great. They're all these wonderful places. But that is something that I know, not being a native of Kentucky, getting a chance to go out to East Kentucky, like it's such a beautiful place, and the people have such a wonderful spirit. And so we hope, we've had a couple of people from tourism on the show, and have a couple more lined up. Hope people will take all of that in, and really check out some of the places in Appalachia. But we always end the show with this question. The mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. Hope, transformation, love, and service. When you think of Appalachia, which one of these ideas resonates with you the most?
Service.
Tell me more.
Yeah, just being able to give back to those who have given us so much. Doesn't necessarily have to mean in terms of money. They give of their hearts, they give of their time, give of their energy. I mean, service is just such a hallmark.
Yeah, awesome. Marc, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pure pleasure to have
It's been
you on
great,
today.
Tina.
We really appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I've learned some other things about you that I didn't know. So it's been great having you on again. Thanks so much. Our guest today has been Marc Whitt, the current Director of Media and Strategic Relations at the University of Kentucky. We hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I have enjoyed the show today, and that you'll check out next week's episode. Tell your friends to check us out too. You can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels. You can also find the podcast at wearecap.org/podcast, or wherever you get your favorite podcast. If you like the show, please take a moment to leave us a review. We'd surely appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so that you never miss a new episode. We'll see you next week.